I like the rant. Ranting is fun. It also cleanses the soul.
Detroit is to be one of the best sports cities in the country, if not the best.
Surely Javi can't be as bad this year as he was last year. Surely that can't be the case.
One of the worst offenses, if not the worst offense, like in the modern era of baseball. Just absolutely atrocious. He is a piece to the puzzle. He is not the entire puzzle.
Right.
He's a puzzle piece, but he is not the entire puzzle.
This is the Michigan Trumbull Podcast with your hosts, Alex S. Freeman and Luke Jaconis.
Hello and welcome to the Michigan and Trumbull Podcast. I'm your host, Alex Freeman, joined as always by Luke Jaconis, and it is the All-Star break week. Although I guess as this episode drops, the All-Star break is now over, but as you can see, if you're watching the show, we are joined by Colin, Lyman, and resident athletics fan, Tom Sowles. Welcome back to the show, boys, for this mid-season update on our picks.
Thanks for having us.
Pleasure being here as always, fellas.
And recently
really
married Sean Young is not here tonight. We don't know where he is.
Yes.
We haven't seen him since he got married. Who knows?
Right. Speaking of Sean, I'm glad he's not here because his team is record-wise the best out of all four of our teams. And since he got married and just couldn't bother to show up, we now do not have to talk about the Cubs at all, which knocks them off the board and puts what team as the number one record-wise team? The Detroit Tigers.
The Detroit Tigers.
Who would have
That's
thought? So thanks, Sean, for not showing up. But also, congrats to Sean and Wenchin. What a beautiful couple. What a beautiful wedding. Good stuff. God bless.
A lovely
Beautiful
day.
couple.
A lovely day. So to get things
Mazel,
started, I'm going to give us an update on our picks and how things stand at the midpoint of the season. Technically a little past the midpoint of the season, but the All-Star break as they stand. So in our division winners and wild card portion of the contest, as a reminder, you got 8 points. You get 8 points for picking the team in the correct place. And you get 5 points if the team is going to make the playoffs. So in that category, does anybody need a rundown of who they picked? Should I give that little rundown real quick? It'll be in the show notes for the people.
Yeah. Do a Spark Notes version real quick, because I'm going to be honest, there's some that I'm having a hard time remembering who I picked.
No idea.
All right, well, here we go. I'm going to give you Tom's picks first. Reigning multi-time champion Tom. His division winners were the Blue Jays, the Astros, the Braves, the Cardinals, the Padres, and the Guardians.
Ooh.
His wild card teams were the Yankees, Twins, Rays, Dodgers, Mets, Brewers. Only 2 of those teams are in the correct position. That would be the Braves and the Guardians currently. The Astros, Rays, and Dodgers would make the playoffs if they started today, giving Tom 31 points in the division winners category. Tying him with one Colin Lyman for last place in the division winners category. Colin, your picks: Blue Jays, Astros, Braves, Cardinals, Dodgers, White Sox as division winners.
Gosh, dang.
Wild card teams. This is where it really starts to hurt, Colin. Wild card teams:
gosh.
Yankees, Rays, Mariners, Padres, Brewers, Mets. Of those teams, Braves and Dodgers in the right position. Blue Jays, Astros, Rays would make the playoffs if they started today. I'm going to give you guys mine now. My division winners: Yankees, Astros, Mets, Cardinals, Dodgers, Guardians. My wild card teams: Mariners, Orioles, Tigers, Braves, Padres, Cubs. I have the Dodgers, Guardians, and Orioles in the correct positions. Astros and Braves would make the playoffs, but I have them in the wrong spots, giving me 34 points in this category. In second place in this category, in this portion of the competition, is one Luke Jaconis. Your division winners: Yankees, Astros, Braves, Cardinals, Padres, Guardians.
I did pick the Padres, didn't I? What an idiot.
And you weren't alone, my friend. You weren't alone. And your wild card teams, the Mariners, Blue Jays, Rays, Dodgers, Mets, Phillies, giving you 39 points, with the Braves, Guardians, Blue Jays in the correct position, Astros, Rays, Dodgers making the playoffs. And not here, but winning this category, Sean Young, division winners, Yankees, Mariners, Braves, Cardinals, Padres, Guardians. And really where he shines is that he has the AL wildcard exactly right. Blue Jays, Astros, Orioles, Dodgers, Phillies, Cubs being his NL teams, Braves, Guardians in the right spot. Dodgers, not a wild card team at the moment, are winning their division, giving him 45 points there. Fellas, I guess before we go to the snake draft for a little update, initial reactions to the standings there. How dumb do you feel? Because I feel pretty dumb.
It feels
Yeah,
like
I
the
feel
opposite of last year.
Yeah.
Yeah, it really is.
Yeah. I feel pretty dumb. I mean, I usually every week on this show feel pretty stupid, especially when I listen to
Luke,
it back.
you and I did decide to do a podcast about the Detroit Tigers, which is its own kind of idiocy.
Yeah, how smart was that to begin with? Yeah, I feel pretty dumb. I don't want to get too into this because I know we have our biggest surprise and like prediction for the second half or blah 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 that we all picked, but my kind of biggest surprise goes hand in hand with kind of my pick, so I'll just leave you with that little foreshadowing. But yeah, I feel pretty dumb. The AL East, I mean, what a crapshoot that division is in a good way. Everyone is either good to great in that division. So I mean, obviously, like the Red Sox are more like kind of like that outside looking in team, but I mean, you could flip a coin right now between the Rays, the O's, even the Blue Jays if they get hot. I mean, we just saw them beat up on the Tigers 2 out of 3 games, which isn't really that hard to do. But yeah, so
Yeah, the A's did it.
It's true.
it's true. It's true. It's true, man. It's true. I don't have anything to say. I don't have anything to say about that. Tom's speaking facts. I almost came close and said it was going to happen, and I almost got swept. I almost spoke that into existence just for the record, but I'm glad it didn't happen. But anyways, yeah, overall, my thoughts are that I'm really bad at making picks, and the AL East is super, super, super competitive. Same can't be said for the Central. Back to you.
Look, I've won this competition 3 years in a row, and even doing that, there are a couple picks I make where I'm like, this was dumb. Why didn't you think of this beforehand? It was right in front of your face. And I don't know if I feel really bad about any of my picks. Like, I feel a little stupid about, I think we all agree that the Cardinals season has been incredibly disappointing so far. But I don't think you could feel that bad about picking them over the Brewers going into the season. And I know the Padres have been bad, but we wanted, like, that was a fun pick. You know what I mean? Like, you want to pick them instead of the Dodgers. So I don't feel that bad about that either. And I feel good that Cleveland will end up winning the Central. And I think Milwaukee, I did pick them as a wild card, so I think they'll at least hang on to that. I really don't feel that bad, even though I'm in last or tied for last, if that makes sense. I could it be better? Obviously. I mean, I guess my biggest regret is picking the Mets, and I have them in my wins pool pick too. And that is my biggest regret, without a doubt. Because why would I only ever make fun of the Mets on the show, and I still pick them, and I clearly am getting what I deserve for that at this point.
That's an excellent transition, Tom, into talking about the snake draft, because your pick of the Mets in the first round is far and away the worst pick of round one.
Yeah. I mean, I was at the tail end of the round, and it was part of, 2 picks in a row. So it wasn't like I was just picking the Mets 1-1, here.
It's true.
But
like somebody who took the Yankees, who took the Yankees 1-1, which was also not a great pick ultimately. And Tom, I will say the Mets, if we consider them the first pick of round 2, because you were at the bottom of round 1, it was not the worst pick of round 2. Yeah. Which does go to me,
because I took the Dodgers
the White Sox
with the other back-to-back pick there, I think. So
yeah, if you flip that, it looks much better on the sheet as we go through that. So I'm not going to go through everybody's picks here, but just giving you an order of operations. You get 1 point for every win here. Tom is currently at the bottom of the picks season wins with 253 wins accumulated by his team. Then it is me with 269. Nice. Then Luke with 272. Sean Young with 279. And Colin Lyman leading the season picks with 284 wins accumulated by his teams.
So we're all within 30 wins, which is okay.
Yeah, it's pretty tight. It's pretty good, which means that those division winners points are going to kind of play into things as we go through. So overall, combined scores, Sean Young currently leading the competition, followed by Colin Lyman behind by 9 points. Luke sitting at 311 to Sean's 324. I'm at 303. Three-time champion Tom. Gonna be a struggle to make it a four-peat with 284 points.
You know, the winning streak was never going to last forever. Okay.
I don't know, Tom. You're pretty well surrounded by idiots, so it could have.
I mean, that was
you had a good
part of the reason I was 3-time winner in a row. I mean,
you had a good run. You had a good run, but now I don't remember. I think I remember who I picked for my teams. Colin, do you remember who you picked for your teams? You're in first.
No.
Oh, okay, good.
I don't even know who I picked in the first round.
The first round, okay. Your first round pick, Colin, was the Atlanta Braves.
Oh, what a good pick!
Which it was a great pick.
Yeah,
it's a great pick.
I would have taken them instead of the Mets in a heartbeat, but I couldn't.
It's true. They were gone off the board.
Quit lying to our listeners, Tom. No one likes a liar.
By far,
I love the Mets.
The best value pick was Sean in round 6, snagging the Cincinnati Reds.
Oh yeah,
with the second to last pick of the draft.
They're my Orioles of last year.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Who picked Arizona?
I have the Diamondbacks. That's probably my highest value. Got them at the end of round 4.
I'm gonna pat myself on the back here. If I'm not mistaken, didn't I take Miami for my 5th pick overall?
You did, Luke. Well done. Yeah, that is probably your best value pick there.
Yep. I would, yeah. I don't want to bury the lead here, but I've got some Miami talk a little later in the show, and I wish Sean was here so I could kind of rub his nose in it, but he's not because he thought I was crazy when I said the Marlins were going to be good this year. I don't always get it right, but every now and then I get one, and I was right about the Marlins.
Well, Luke, you want to use that as the transition into?
Oh, we're doing this now?
Let's do it. Let's transition in.
We want to start surprise of the first half and then do second half prediction.
Let's go surprise.
My surprise of the first half is something we've all kind of alluded to. I mean, it would be easy to go with a team like Miami kind of being a surprise team, Cincinnati obviously being a surprise team. You could even say maybe Arizona to an extent, but they kind of, I think, had a little higher hopes than definitely Cincinnati did. I think everyone thought Cincinnati was like a bottom 5 team this year, and they are alive and well. But my overall biggest surprise of the first half of the season is how abysmal the Mets, the Cardinals, and the Padres are. I mean, if it was one of those teams, you could say, okay, yeah, but you could make an argument, and even you go back and look at some of our picks, that those were all 3 teams that were the front runners to win their division in some capacity. I mean, obviously the Braves are always competitive and the Dodgers are competitive, but you could have made a sound argument back in March that the Padres would win the West, Cards would win the Central, and the Mets would win the East. And the fact that all 3 of those teams suck as badly as they do, and mainly the Cardinals, because what's funny is, no disrespect to my father, who I know loves the Cardinals, but Alex, as we have talked about for the last 4 seasons on this show, the Cardinals are always the model of consistency, and they just look anything but this season. It is a brutal time to be a Redbirds fan, and it's not great. And then the Padres and the Mets the Mets, with all the money the star power and the money they spent just to be as mediocre as they've been. Same thing with the Padres. I mean, it's just, they're more or less the same kind of issue with all 3 teams, but I think that's for me the biggest surprise, how bad all 3 of them are as a collective unit. So that's me.
Tom?
All the biggest surprises are pretty much what Luke said. It's how good the Reds have been, how bad the Cardinals have been. I'm not that surprised the Mets have fallen apart just because they're the Mets.
Mhm.
And San Diego along those same lines, because they're the franchise that's never really done it, so that you really should make them prove it before you bet on them, even if it is fun to bet on them. And I'm a little surprised, honestly, at how good the Rays have been. I thought they'd be good, of course, but to be as good as they were, and I know they kind of fell off towards the end by the All-Star break, but they were so unbelievably good the first half of the season. I really did not see that coming at all.
I think, Tom, I'm going to pick up on that note because my biggest surprise is two sides of the same coin. How abysmally bad the American League Central has been. The fact that we are at the All-Star break and the division leader is 500.
Yeah, the fact there hasn't been one team that's really grabbed it by the horns.
That's been able to consistently be above 500 by even a game and a half. That the Tigers are 11 games under 500 and only 5.5 out from the division kind of says everything you need to say about the American League Central, and simultaneously how dominant the American League East has been, and the fact that the Boston Red Sox are sitting 3 games above 500 and are in last place of their division is just almost shocking to me that the two divisions could be having such diametrically opposed seasons in terms of competitiveness and fielding a decent product on the field. Colin?
Yeah, I mean, I guess just going off that, being in AL, I don't know about an AL Central fan, but following the AL Central, being a White Sox fan, I feel like that's not super out of the norm. Like, it's maybe more than normal, like having a team at 500 in the AL Central being leading, but the AL Central is just consistently not good, and the AL East is consistently nasty. I almost wish that they would mix it up a little bit to make it, better for some of those, like Red Sox, as we know, would be easily winning. No, I mean, I do and I don't.
Can we get Oakland to the Central by any chance?
Yeah. No, and I'm sure the Cubs feel the same way. The Cubs fans being in that division, it hasn't been great. But, some of those lower half teams are picking it up. And the Reds are my surprise for sure. Just being in Louisville, everyone is a Reds fan. And, like, when it started with Ellie De La Cruz, like, hopping on the scene, like, people were excited. He's the best prospect they've ever seen, that the Reds have ever had. And they get hot for a few games. People are like, oh, the Reds always do this. They get good for a few games. That's not going to last. And then they're like 22-8 with him right now or something. Just the stands are full. Like, people are buzzing about the Reds right now. So it's been cool to see. And that's definitely been my biggest surprise.
Can we take a stroll down memory lane here for a second, going back to what you said in the beginning, Colin, about how the Central is ass, which it really is. But we're gonna really take a stroll down memory lane here back to like when I was like in middle school and high school. The Central didn't always used to be so terrible. I mean, you can always guarantee with the AL Central 1 to 2 teams that are just like, how are they even a major league franchise? In usually the last few seasons, it's been the Royals and the Tigers following that back and forth. But back in the day, Colin, you'll probably remember this. I mean, it was Tigers, White Sox. I mean, they would battle back and forth in the late 2000s, early 2010s, and the Cleveland got involved a couple of seasons. Minnesota got involved. Other than that one year when Kansas City won the whole thing, they've never really been a true factor. But it hasn't always been like this. There's usually at least a semi-competitive race between 2 or 3 teams, even if they are floating around 500. But it just seems like nobody wants to win the AL Central this year. Which obviously I'd be happy if the Tigers found a way to win the Central. Who am I kidding? But I mean, if you win the Central and you're 4 or 5 games under, it's almost like that you're wasn't it the Rams who won a wild card and they got in at like 7-9, and it was like, how the hell did this happen? Or I think they won the West, whatever it was. Yeah, it was like not great. So yeah, and then interesting about the Reds, real quick to bring them up. It was
Yeah.
just a couple of years. It was a year ago, a year and a half ago. Joey Votto was like calling out ownership, being like, I don't even know what we're doing anymore. When they like dumped Castellanos, they traded Luis
Yeah.
Castillo, all the Suarez got traded, and a year and a half later, they're again just a piss rocket, just absolutely exciting and
Crazy.
just a fully energized, re-energized team, and it's awesome.
Yeah.
I wish a team in the AL Central knew how to do that. I think we all know who I'm talking about.
I know it's
Even-
comparing apples to oranges, but that has to upset you guys, right? You're jealous, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, I
Definitely.
tweeted it out not too long ago. I tweeted it out a couple weeks ago. I was like, I'm amazed that it was only a year ago that a year or two ago the Orioles, the Reds, the Pirates are playing better than they are now when I tweeted this, but all these teams were in the basement with us. And it was like we all sucked together, and it's like, watching all your buddies graduate and you got to go to summer school. And that's pretty much that's where the Tigers are. They're in summer school. Someone call Mr. Feeney. Let's get them the diploma and graduate to a major league team. But yes, of course I'm jealous. It sucks.
It's really
sucks.
it'll be really interesting to me looking to the trade deadline about what the American League Central teams are going to do kind of as a collective, because if what you determine that your fan base needs from you is to make the playoffs, none of the teams in the mix, except for the Royals, need to do much to get better enough to win the division.
That's why I really think I don't see Cleveland or Minnesota making any major moves. I think they're both going to be like, we just didn't play our best baseball in the 1st half. We believe with who we have on our team now, we're going to play better in the second half. And I think they're going to mostly rely on that. And I don't really think you can fault them for that kind of thinking in terms of winning the division. Now, if you're talking about trying to win a pennant, that's a different story.
Yeah, exactly. And like, I think that if you look at like where the Tigers and the White Sox are sitting right now, 1 to 2 guys onto that roster that can be more consistent than the rest of the team, and suddenly they're much more competitive to win the division, either team. And so, do you want to make that small move to become a playoff team, or do you wait and load up in a moment where you can actually start to make a pennant run? I don't know what ownership's going to do. Certainly from a Detroit perspective, and Colin, maybe you have a sense of what they might do from a White Sox perspective, or if they've already called it a lost season.
I don't know. We need new management.
I would blow
honestly.
it up. If I was the White Sox, I would blow
it
it up.
We need it.
Is the White Sox?
But I don't think they want to win. I don't think they want to win. Like the management.
Reinsdorf is an idiot.
Yeah,
Barry
Reinsdorf is
he's a buffoon.
He's really being in
never
Chicago,
have a
you
chance.
hear a lot more about it, but he's really like, he's not really out there. But when you read things about him and reporting about him, he's really climbing in those rankings of bad owners. He
Yeah.
really is.
It's tragic.
If the White Sox end up blowing it all up, which I think very likely is going to happen in some capacity, it has to be, when we look back 10 years from now, how everyone always like gives the Tigers shit for not winning when they should have won a World Series in, the early 2010s with that lineup and those pitchers they had.
Should have won 2.
I'm not going to say the White
3.
Sox. I'm not going to say the White Sox are as egregious as that, but I mean, they're up there. I mean, the lineup they had last year and the year before that, and even this year to an extent. I mean, I know they got rid of a couple guys, for 23. Abreu's gone among others, but
but even Abreu's been terrible this year.
So Houston, So I don't know. I think we're going to look back. Maybe not right now. I think right now we're just kind of like, man, the White Sox suck, but everybody in the AL Central sucks. So let's keep moving along. But I think in a couple of years we're all going to look back at the talent on the White Sox, from 2019 to 2022 or whatever, and we're going to be like, holy hell, how did this team not do anything, other than getting bounced early from the playoffs? Like, they were so underwhelming. No offense, Colin. I don't mean to rub salt in the wound here, but they stink.
It's just facts. No, it's fine.
What I will say is, real quick, taking it back to the Tigers, Alex, I love your sentiment, and a younger, more naive, optimistic Luke would maybe share those thoughts. And to an extent, I still kind of wish maybe they go out and add one or two people and they magically find a way. But luckily, I roomed with Tom Sowles for a year in Chicago, and he just completely stripped me of any hope or happiness or optimism when it came to my baseball team. And I'm a better man for it. But I realistically, and all jokes aside, I'm going to be curious to see how they handle the trade deadline. Not only because it's Scott Harris's first as team president, but I don't know how many pieces are that enticing to other teams. Like I know Michael Lorenzen was an all-star, but he's like 2-6 with I think a slightly above 4 ERA. Erod was hurt. He's only pitched 1 or 2 games since coming back off the IL. Offensively, the only person who's worth a damn is Riley Green, and they're not going to trade him. So it's like, yeah, maybe in a hypothetical, had Javi been playing better or Jonathan Scope been playing better, then absolutely, you probably, deal one of those guys. But Scope's gone. Javi sucks. Like, there's not that many trade pieces that are going to be that appealing to, I feel like, teams looking to add to their team. Maybe you see Jason Foley or Alex Lang, but even Alex Lang kind of stinks now somewhat. What's going on? Oh, my God. For the audio listeners, it looked like, was that a beaver shooting laser beams? Just attacked Colin's Zoom. So that's what happened there. But anyways, yeah, I just don't know how there's not like a ton of gold to be had if you're looking to, to shop with the Detroit Tigers, honestly.
That's why I really don't think the Tigers are going to see big changes.
Yeah, I don't think they can make
they're going to leave it.
I don't think they can make any kind of moves that are,
significant,
blow it up kind of things. But teams that are blowing it up, if the White Sox decide to blow it up, are there pieces that they can pick up off of that real cheap for a couple of the prospects? Because they don't develop them very well anyway, so who cares?
And for what it's worth with the Tigers is like, and I hate to sound optimistic, so Tom, feel free to slap me through your computer screen, but as you kind of said, how Cleveland and Minnesota, like they're probably not going to add a whole lot, and they're just going to hope that they're better in the second half, and guys are going to bounce back, stay healthy, etc. The Tigers, I mean, obviously a lot of guys need to bounce back, Javi, Torque, Eric Haas, etc. But in terms of health, this is the healthiest they have been all season. So maybe something like that helps. I mean, Tarek Skubal has only pitched 8 innings since he's come back, but he's yet to let up a run. He's looked absolutely dominant. Reese Olson looks good. Erod is back if he doesn't get dealt. So Riley Green is healthy again.
Yeah, and wasn't it?
It's a big mondo if, but like they're finally healthy for the first
21
time.
When they went on a really good run, right?
Yes. Yeah, that's when they at one point in time, I think like in 2021 were like 4 games under 500 or something. So I mean, it's an enormous if. And I'm
you think about
my breath it happens, but it could.
Like
they're healthy for the first time.
The silver lining of all of those injuries is that none of those guys are appealing right now because they haven't had enough work this year to really want to come in and make a deal for Erod.
So you're hoping they get in 2 really good weeks of work here, and then you can deal them.
If Erod could throw a perfect game in his next start or two, that would be. It's a shame he wasn't included in the combined no hitter.
The A
stock
series
could have been through the roof, but what are you gonna do?
Well, with that, I mean, obviously we haven't talked about the combined no hitter on the show yet, which was super cool. But we'll probably talk about it at a different date because we're focused on the big picture today. So let's.
I'm perfectly fine not talking about no hitters.
Potential.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the chat. Domingo Herman. Domingo, come on in, buddy.
Come on in. Hey, buddy.
Yeah. Just 2-second thought. No hitters are awesome. Combined no hitters are awesome, but they're not as cool as solo no hitters. That's all. We can move on.
Or for the record,
or perfect
good
games.
stuff, though.
We're not going to talk about it because this is not an A's podcast, but I would rather have the team have a historically bad record than have lost the no-hitter streak this season. That's how I feel. That's how legitimately sad I was about that. I was like, the one thing going into the season, I was like, we have the longest no-hit streak in all of baseball. I was like, even if the team really, really sucks, maybe we can just get through the season with that. Nope.
Now, Tom, what if I offer you the option to be the team that gets no hit the most in a single season?
I don't think I want that. It's a generous offer, but I don't think I want that.
All right.
So we're on the topic right now. I know, Alex, you wanted to go to the break here in a second, but just a quick prediction for Tom as we go to break here. Tom, the A's are 25-67. So let's relate it back to the Tigers a little bit. Do they win more than the 2003 team, which they only won 39 games?
Yes.
Will they win more than the 2019 team that won 47 games?
No.
Ooh.
I think they're going to
Okay.
end up at about 43 to 45.
So I think there was that one O's team in like the late
They're
2010s.
currently on pace for 43 last
Yeah.
time, I think. So
That was like, there was like an O's team. I think it was like that historically bad team with like Chris Davis that like they only won, I want to say
Yeah.
like 44 games or something like that, like 5-10 years ago. But okay. Yeah, I think
And
they'll be better than 03. And
they're
playing better.
Yes,
but like
they've
for
been
what
playing
worth.
better, and they did just call up 2 of their top 3 prospects, including their top one. So I think the offense should be a little bit better. And the reason they've been better than they were the first couple months of the season is the starting pitching has gotten
Mhm.
better. All the young starters, they've had a little experience, have sort of solidified themselves a little bit. So if they can keep
I'm aware. I
trending
saw the A series with the Tigers. I'm
Yeah.
aware. About
if
the
they can
starting
keep
pitching.
trending in that direction, I think they're going to eke out a few more wins offensively. So I think they should be able to clear the 42 and wins or however many the 03 Tigers had.
The 39. I think they'll be 39.
Yeah.
47 might be a stretch for them, but
Yeah.
we'll see. We'll see.
For those keeping track at home, Sean Young thought we were starting at 9:00 Central,
Mm.
and he's going to be late. He's going to be late to that. So we will probably be wrapped up about the time Sean Young tries to join.
I
the
hope
chat.
he comes on right when we're finishing.
We'll give him We'll give him 30 seconds to talk about the Cubs, and then we cut him off. We cut his mic.
He's just dead. Kick him out of the chat.
No.
All right, so let's talk some second half predictions and what we might be expecting to come out of there. We just talked about how historically bad we think the A's will be. Any other second half predictions that folks want to throw out there to be horribly wrong about?
I'm gonna ride my bold prediction on the season, and it's still pretty bold, but definitely not looking as bold as it was going into the season. And that's that the Miami Marlins are going to win the World Series. I'm still sticking. That's my bold prediction.
As a wild card team, obviously, because that's how they do it.
Correct. Yeah, there's no way they are winning the NL East from Atlanta. That's not happening. But yeah, I'll stick with I guess that's my bold prediction. Overall second half predictions, and this is kind of bold to an extent, maybe not. You guys can tell me if I'm being bold or not. I don't think Shohei gets dealt at the deadline.
I don't think he does either.
I know there's a lot more like steam picking up with that, like that the Yankees are going after him for a mid-season thing. I mean, the Yankees are always involved in everything, so it's not really that like surprising. But I don't think he's going to get dealt at the deadline. I am starting to think he is as good as gone in the offseason.
Yeah.
I
just don't think
it's
you
gonna happen
can
this year.
I just don't think you can trade him unless the GM explicitly asks him, "Hey, is there any chance of you re-signing here?" And if he says no, then I'd be okay trading him. But even if he says yes, or there's a chance, I just don't think you could do it.
Yeah, I think Shohei will be a San Francisco Giant next season.
Ooh.
Are you sure the A's aren't going to pony up the money for him? Or
well, I think he really wants to stay on the West Coast, and so he doesn't want to go to Vegas.
Chris Illich bought a Shohei Ohtani bobblehead, and he thought that would make Tigers fans happy. But alas.
honestly, some days I might take a Shohei Ohtani bobblehead in the rotation over some of the options we're trotting out. So
I may have said this before. I don't need the A's to ever actually be in the Shohei or a player of his caliber sweepstakes down the road. I just want to pretend like my team is even close enough to being considered for the sweepstakes, let alone be in the sweepstakes.
Like, like on the bottom ESPN line,
Yeah.
like back in the day would like show like teams that were interested in stuff,
Yeah.
like on the Hot Stove Report, just to have your team like be like the second to last team mentioned on the
Yeah.
bottom scroll line.
Or
You know you're not going to
whenever,
get them.
yeah, whenever a writer
fun to
writes
be-
an article about
Yeah.
trade candidates and it's like potential teams, I just want the A's to be listed under potential teams, not
Yeah.
likely or definite, just potential.
It's fun to get the invite to the party. That's
Yeah.
all. That's all you're saying.
Yeah.
This is not maybe as bold a prediction or this prediction is bolder than it probably should be, but I think Aaron Boone will be fired by the end of the season as the manager of the New
love
York
that.
Yankees.
That's a good prediction.
Do you think they have to miss the playoffs for that to happen?
I do, and I think that they will, or that I think he'll either be fired immediately at the conclusion of the season or when they are mathematically eliminated from the playoffs.
Okay.
That's a really solid prediction. Because I agree with everything you just said. I don't think they're making it, and if they do, they're just going to squeak in and get bounced early. I feel like,
Yeah.
and I think he's similar to Shohei. If he makes it past the trade deadline, he is also good as gone.
Yeah, and I think that Aaron Boone should have been fired probably after last season.
Did I just see they brought in Sean Casey as the temporary hitting coach for the rest of the season? I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, I think that is correct.
I'm pretty sure I saw that
Yeah.
he is going to be the hitting coach for the remainder of the season.
I mean, he's already in New
former
York
Tiger.
working at the network, so
Yeah,
True.
Just pop on over.
yeah.
Absolutely.
Colin, you got one? Is it that a Louisville Cardinal will be the MVP of this season?
That would be a good one. I'm gonna stick with the Reds train. I'm gonna say that they stay hot, that they make the postseason, win the division, and that they get to the NLCS and lose.
Ooh, a very specific prediction in the placement of the playoffs. I like it. I like it a lot.
I just think they haven't been there in a while, and they're gonna be hot. They're gonna be feeling themselves in the division series, but they're not gonna be able to sustain it. But I think they ride this wave through the season. Maybe not as hot, but I think enough to do the job in their division.
Do they then acquire Shohei Ohtani in the offseason?
Heck no.
Shohei's not going to Cincinnati?
Cincinnati.
That would be so cool, though, if he went to a team like the Reds or.
Yeah.
That would be sick.
Shohei just eating Skyline chili.
Hey, Skyline Chili ain't bad.
Here's all I think Shohei wants. He just wants to be on a good team.
Yeah.
That's all he wants. He doesn't care about money. I mean, he's got plenty of money.
Mm-hmm.
He might care a little about money, but I think he wants to win more. I mean,
he
never had a shot.
I think that if his choice is to be the highest paid pitcher of all time or be on a World Series contender, I think he would take World Series contender.
I agree.
Over that, which is not true of many players of his caliber.
Yep.
What about, I don't know if it happens this season or during the offseason, Shohei stays in the AL West and goes to the Texas Rangers?
Gosh, I can't see him in Texas.
I would much rather see him in Seattle than Texas.
Me too.
And I think that feels more likely. That feels more likely.
Yeah.
If he's going to go to not the Dodgers, I think it's like Giants, Mariners are like the two most likely landing spots.
Yeah, all these teams have the money for it.
Mm-hmm.
So,
I mean, Texas right now is they're leading the AL West. They look like the front runners at this point. I mean, I know Houston is Houston, but that's another team. I didn't talk about them in the first half of the show. That was a team for whatever reason I just didn't have on my radar because they were so kind of whatever last year. Texas has been another just dominant. I mean, when they played the Tigers, they just roughed them up. That is a bully of a lineup,
and that's basically without DeGrom, and Martin Perez hasn't been very good compared to years past. So the lineup has just been so unbelievably good. It's really carrying.
I think they will look for starting pitching most definitely at the deadline. And I think I saw something a few weeks ago. I know rumors are always swirling around this time of year, but Scherzer to Texas, maybe you could, I think if they're interested, maybe Erod, depending if, what the price tag is and how he pitches these next couple of starts. But
I think if they want to win the division, they have to do it, because if they don't make a significant move, I this was going to be my prediction. It's not bold, but I think Houston is going to pass them. Like they're only 2 games out and they've been playing a lot better and Texas hasn't. And I just think that Houston is the better full team right now and will pass them eventually unless Texas makes a move.
Yeah. I think both will be busy at the deadline.
Any last thoughts here before we move over into our game section of the show?
Well,
Baseball's great.
Period on baseball or what?
No. I mean,
ever.
We'll be talking basically. Just your final thoughts. You're never allowed to talk about baseball again.
Ever again. Baseball is such a wonderful sport that I love. I just wish, I'm going to speak for everybody that's on this chat, including Sean Young. I just wish baseball would love me back as much as I love baseball.
Yep.
Truly.
Put that on a shirt.
What did Tom Wamsgam say in the second season succession? If I were not to be a Tigers fan or stop watching baseball, I wish the hurt I feel with you would be worse if the sad if I didn't have you or whatever. So I totally completely butchered that line, but yeah,
We
that's
get the
something
gist.
along those lines.
Yeah.
That's I feel like
it.
Tom on the beach with Shiv, and I'm talking about, instead of love for my very weird wife, I'm talking about the Detroit Tigers. That's and the lack of commitment they show me, but I still love them, and I love baseball. I just wish my team was better. It sucks.
That's all.
That's it.
Game time.
Okay, fellas, here's how this game is going to work. For those that listen to the show, you know that this section of the show is usually where I quiz Luke on some stats and some numbers. So we're going to do something a little like that. I am going to give you the statistics of 2 players who lead their teams in certain categories. I will note if they also are in the top 5 of the league in that category. And then you have to tell me the team that I'm describing and or the player, one of the 2 players that is that person on the team. So for example, I'll give you a batting average, an OBP, and a hits, knowing that those are all the same player who leads in those categories for their team, and a wins number, an ERA, and a strikeouts number, same player that leads for that category in that team. Not all the teams have the same categories, not all the things. So just raise your hand. I'll call on you, the first hand that I see, to make the guess. So this first team has a player in the top 5 of batting average with a 383 batting average, an OBP of 434,
come on.
hits
easy.
of 126, and a pitcher who has 8 wins, an ERA of 329, strikeouts 129. I'm going to go to Tom Sowles.
This is the Miami
guess.
Marlins.
That is correct.
This is the only one I would have known. Sorry.
Who's
the batting average gave it away?
Colin.
Luis Arias.
Yep. Colin, can you name the pitcher?
No.
8 wins, a 3.29 ERA, 129 strikeouts. Pitcher for the Miami Marlins. Luke, you got the pitcher?
Is it Alcantara? I mean, I
that's
don't
what I was
even think
gonna
he's
say,
been that
Alcantara.
good, though, right?
Yeah, he hasn't been that good.
He has not been that good. It is Jesus Luzardo of the
XA.
Miami Marlins.
Wow.
So that's gonna be 2 points.
Sad
for
part is I
Tom.
actually watch a decent amount of these games down here, and I still didn't get that. So I guess I need to watch them a little bit closer.
It was a little tighter.
Okay,
We traded that guy for 2 months of Starling Marte. And don't get me wrong, it was a great 2 months, but not a great trade.
Actually, Tom, according to Frank the Tank Fleming, his name is Starling Farte. Thank you very much.
All right, this next team has a player with 75 RBIs and 23 home runs. The RBIs is good enough for top 5 in the league. And a pitcher with 10 wins and an ERA of 2.83, also in the top 5 of the league, Luke Jaconis.
Is this the Tampa Bay Rays?
It is not the Tampa Bay Rays.
I thought maybe that was a Rosarena.
Top 5 RBI, top 5 ERA for the pitcher.
And the pitcher has 10 wins, you said?
10 wins.
Oh, boy.
Uh,
Go ahead, Tom.
is this the Braves?
It is not the Braves.
Who has 10 wins as a pitcher? That's what I thought it was maybe McClanahan for Tampa, but
The Angels.
It is not the Los Angeles Angels of
Oof,
Anaheim.
brutal.
Okay, now that we're just throwing out teams, is it the
Yeah.
other LA team?
It is not. It is the Texas Rangers.
Oh,
shite.
Okay, so the player with 23 home runs and 75 RBIs of the Rangers, who is that?
Adolis Garcia.
That is
Adolis
correct.
Garcia.
That is
Yeah.
correct, Luke Jaconis. And the pitcher with 10 wins and an ERA of 2.83.
Eovaldi.
That is correct, Tom.
Shit. I was thinking we just had the whole conversation about how like they don't have DeGrom. And pitching that, like, and I was
Yeah,
like,
they don't
"Oh,
have
it can't be the
DeGrom, but
Rangers."
Eovaldi's been
Yeah.
great. So
And they got the guy from the White Sox too, Dunning. That's been pretty solid. Yeah. Dang it, that was a good one, Alex.
Okay, this next one has a player, a batter with a batting average of 302, 32 home runs, and 71 RBIs, and an OBP of 387 and 103 hits. And a pitcher with 7 wins, an ERA of 3.32, and 132 strikeouts. Luke?
Is this the LA Angels?
This is the Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim. Who's the
AKA
hitter?
just Shohei Ohtani.
Shohei
and he's
Ohtani.
the pitcher.
That is
Is that the
correct. Ohtani.
He's both. Yeah.
Dang it.
Both.
Yeah. Knew that was Shohei. Thank you.
Luke, I'm
Love
going to
it.
giving you all 3 points there for that one, which does make our score currently Tom 3, Luke 3, Colin Lyman, Big Goose Egg. I got 2 more
Fat,
teams.
stinky
I got
goose
2 more
egg.
teams
All right.
for us.
Okay.
This next team, it's a little tricky. I only have 1 stat for each player. So good luck with you. But top 5 RBIs, 64, and top 5 in saves with 25. Luke?
This is the Blue Jays?
It is not.
Give me the Dodgers.
I cannot give you the Dodgers.
Please.
That is not who they are.
Tom.
I feel like this is a good team, but not a great team because of the saves aspect.
How many saves was it? 25, you said?
25 saves.
See, being a Tigers fan, that seems like an obscene amount of saves for the first half, but that's because we live in squalor.
That'd be a lot of wins.
We're gonna need
It'd
we're
be a
gonna need
huge number of wins.
a slight hint. Maybe the league.
I'll say they're a division leader right now. But you're thinking of they're a good team but not great is along the right lines as well.
This is just a guess, but can I have the Reds?
Oh, that's a good guess but not correct.
Good guess. Good guess.
I'm going to go with the Giants.
Not the Giants. Not the Giants. This is an American League team.
Oh, okay. So the Giants?
This could be
Just
the
kidding.
Guardians with Class A, and
This is the Guardians
Oh.
with Emmanuel Clase.
Wow, okay.
And then Jose Ramirez with RBIs?
No.
That's surprising.
Jose Ramirez does not currently lead.
they have other hitters.
They do.
I
They
know.
have at least one.
I didn't know that.
Who's the other? Not Josh Bell.
Close.
I just pay no attention to this team. I'm going to be honest.
Yeah.
It
I
is
just
Josh Naylor of the Cleveland Guardians.
Ah,
I would not have
Hmm.
guessed that he had 64 RBIs, you said?
Yeah.
That is
Dang.
impressive. The man is in our own division, and I did not even know that.
Fun
All right.
fact:
Was he an all-star?
the A's drafted the 3rd Naylor brother in the
Saw that.
MLB draft this year.
Everybody knows the third brother's the best.
Yeah, well, here's hoping.
Just ask the Mannings.
The Manning.
Eli, the superior.
I would disagree with that because that would insinuate that Andrew Lawrence of the Lawrence brothers is the best. And I think we all know that the answer clearly Matt from Mrs. Doubtfire and the hit ABC sitcom Boy Meets World. So whoever told you that is wrong.
All right, here's our last one here, Colin. You can get yourself some respect by getting some points here. Luke, you could win the game by getting all three. Tom, if you get one of the single points available, you will lock up your victory. Here we go. This team has a player leading their team in these categories with 12 home runs, 45 RBIs, and 76 hits, and strikeouts 74 and an ERA of 2.69. Luke Jaconis?
This is one of our crappy teams.
This is Spencer Torkelson, the Detroit Tigers.
That is correct.
Spencer Torkelson. And for ERA, can I get the ERA one more time?
2.69.
And how many strikeouts?
74.
Leading the team.
This has to be Rodriguez.
Erod.
Ooh, Tom got it out first. I'm going to give the point to Tom and the win to Tom.
Nice.
Should have gone off my gut, but I was like,
The best part is
2.9.
if you look at ESPN's stats page for the Detroit Tigers right now, it is just a grayed out face with a dash on ERA. I had to manually look up who was leading because no pitcher has pitched enough innings
to qualify
to lead the team in ERA.
That makes sense. That makes sense. That tracks.
Well done, Tom. Tom, excellent victory for you here.
Thank you.
Well done.
Stats game.
Had to make up for my season predictions picks. So,
Colin, do you even know anything about baseball?
You know, the only one I felt really good about was the Marlins. But I thought I had to know the hitter's name, and I could not think of it.
That'll happen.
Real quick, I really messed up.
Before we sign off here, how did everyone feel about our respective teams' drafts recently? Anyone feeling like overly excited or negative? I'm kind of, yeah.
The MLB draft is so hard to judge right away, but more so than the other drafts. You have to wait years before you really find out. And the lottery had already happened, but the A's picked 6th instead of in the top 2 where they should have been because of the first year of the lottery system, and they get booted out of the top picks, even having the second worst record or whatever. But they drafted, I think, guys who should be able to contribute in the relative short term in 2 to 3 years. Didn't take a lot of high school kids with their top picks, meaning that those guys are the guys they draft are more 2 to 3 years away as opposed to 4 or 5 theoretically. So I guess that's nice, but
so they can get traded away in 4 to 5 years.
Who really knows? I don't know. I mean,
Colin?
The White Sox are so bad at drafting. I just don't even pay attention until they end up getting to the big leagues, and then they're usually still not very good, or they get injured,
or they've been
dealt
away.
Our team just we love to spend a lot of money on guys who get injured, and then just keep them, and they just keep getting injured. I don't know.
Spoken like a real AL Central cynic. I like it.
They're killing me right now, and I don't know. I need to talk to someone about it. It's a problem.
Yeah, there's a whole nother podcast, honestly.
Yeah, we should do group therapy. We should do group therapy one episode. Be great.
We'll get a therapist in. We'll work through it.
Confession. We'll bring a priest in.
Just play Luke's rant music to open the show. We all rant about our respective teams for roughly 15 to 20 minutes each. Mm-hmm. Then you play the outro music is also the rage music, and that's the episode.
The rant I did a couple weeks ago, I think that went on about 15 to 18 minutes. So that was a long one. It was like a Martin Scorsese movie. We probably could have cut out a little bit of it, but hey.
I remember that because I turned it on was listening. I took a whole shower. I cleaned up. I changed.
Yep.
Started cooking dinner. You were still ranting, and I remember thinking, "Wow, this one has really lasted quite a while."
It's true. Well, got to exercise the demons sometimes. That Chris Ilitch will do that to you. I'll just leave it at that. The Tigers draft, I'm whatever on. I mean, I my main thing is who can we get up here the quickest, the fastest that will have an immediate impact. If that was Wyatt Langford, great. If it ends up being Max Clark, fantastic. Like you said, Tom, it's so hard to see the things like that have an immediate impact, like the NFL draft or something along those lines. The NBA draft, we may not know for 1 to 2 to 3 years.
Right.
I mean, Spencer Torkelson was, highlighted as this big first overall monster of a home run hitting machine, great raw power, and he's just a not complete disaster, but he's been a
bit of a dud currently.
He's a bit of a dud, bit of a mess.
Yeah.
Hopefully it turns around, but you just never know. So
I know it's
we'll
a
see what
little different
happens.
now in terms of they don't make guys toil in the minors as long as they used to, and that's rightfully so in my opinion. But when the Tigers took a high school kid, even if he is like a polished high school kid with the first overall pick, to me that signaled this is still a rebuild. This is not we're picking to contend next year, 2 years.
Yeah.
This is more down the road kind of thing.
I did see a thing where it was like, now that they have Max Clark, Jackson Jobe, a couple, and they actually, I think out of like I don't know how many people they drafted, it was like 19 or something like that. Like 12 of them or 14 of them. I'm getting the number wrong, but pretty much the bulk of the people they drafted this year were out of high school, and I read something that's like, this is Scott Harris now taking so much young talent that they can now develop them into this new way they want players to be developed under the Scott Harris regime, which I'm not against. But I am against if that's going to take, 5 to 7 years of losing 100 games in a row to make it happen. So you have to kind of find a happy medium there.
We now need to see them spend money in the offseason for for immediate impact players while we wait for those guys
to bridge the gap.
Yeah.
And I do think it is kind of bullshit when people are like, "Oh, good job drafting a high school kid. You'll see him in 6 years." It's like, I think that's a bit over dramatic. Riley Green was drafted in, I think it was 2018 or 2019, and I think it was 19, and he made his debut in 2022. So, I think it doesn't take, it's not going to happen, I think, next year. I don't think you're going to see Max Clark in the big leagues next year, but I mean, depending on how he does in the minors, it could be a season or two, but I don't think it's like this weird stigma. It's like, good luck seeing them in 7 years. It's like, all right, well, I think you're a bit wrong, but we'll see.
I mean, if you want
I could be wrong on that.
No, if you want a little bit of hope, I mean, the A's are calling up their top prospect, Tyler Soderstrom, starting, tomorrow. We're recording this on Thursday. And he was drafted out of high school 2 years ago. He's 20 still. So he's making his debut on Friday. So we'll see how it goes.
That's true.
Interesting.
All right, fellas. Well, thank you for this check-in mid-season. We'll see you at the conclusion of the season when we crown a champion. Maybe Tom for the 4th time in a row with a big comeback, or maybe just a ghost person, as Sean does not know how to read a clock or a calendar.
Yeah.
So
we love you, Sean.
But we will all be here, and have a great week, everybody, and have a great second half of the season.
See ya.
Good stuff, everybody.
Fun as always, fellas.